Hello, communicators. Welcome to episode 18 of the audio series The Communicator. Let's dive into the world of corporate communications from an in house lens. I'm Yesenia Reinoso, your host, and thanks so much for tuning in. If you are new to the show or are a general member, hit that subscribe button. You can also share, like, and comment on this and previous episodes at your disposal. Spread it far and wide, friends. I'm available on social media, so follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter/X. All of my handles are listed in the episode description box below. And finally, this episode and all previous 17 volumes are now available across all primary podcast mediums. Every new episode comes out on the first and third Mondays of the month, which you can hear on your laptop, mobile, or any portable electronic device. Now that we got that fabulous intro out of the way, welcome back to a brand new episode of The Communicator. I am so excited that we are reunited once again in our podcast core circle. In some ways, I feel like there is a bonfire snack dab in that very precious middle where all of us are just hanging out, eating some s'mores, talking about communications, and figuring out new ways as to how we could further amplify our voices and spotlight. But that's what the communicator is all about. It's all about us, the storytellers. And so, as we navigate through the second season, we are now at the halfway point of the first half of this brand new seasonal rotation. And so, as I've mentioned in the previous two episodes, we got the first half of the season, which is composed of 5 episodes. Then we're going to go on a break, and then we will then launch the second half of the second season, composed of 5 episodes, which will wrap it up all together to the 10 that is going to be summarized in completion for season 2 before we hit our next hiatus. And so I've decided that for the entire season, we are going to be focusing on the most well known and critical component within the corporate communications umbrella, and that is external communications. One that I could very well say we all utilize in our day to day business strategies. Some tactics we already know, and there are other ones that are very much new that are popping up, and something that we not only need to know, but also we can ultimately utilize in our business objectives. And so the season 2 premiere, I talked about what exactly it is external communications. In the follow-up episode, episode 17, I talked about public relations and what that is all about. By the way, you can catch the first 2 episodes available on all major podcast mediums, and as well as the entire season 1 library, also available on all major podcast mediums and on YouTube. But either way, I wanted episodes 17, 18, and 19 to focus on the 2 areas that are pretty much well known by everyone, whether you work in communications or not. And that is public relations. And now we are going to be shifting gears to the other known area, also known as media relations, or MR for short. And so, episode 18 is going to be a dedicated episode that strictly talks about media relations. We're going to be looking into what exactly is media relations, how to build media relationships, pitching stories to the press, media relations training, cultivating thought leadership, the importance of media relations today, and everything in between. And so, as we deeply divest into what makes media relations the critical component that it is today, we also need to emphasize its importance in today's traditional and digital landscape and how it is very much interconnected across all roads. And so now that we got all of that out of the way, and I'm sure you are just as excited to dive into the media relations spectrum, I just want to let everybody to be quickly notified that the Communicator obviously is a show that has you in mind. And so if you happen to have any suggestions, questions, anything that pops up in your head, obviously you can reach out to me. My lines are always open. Don't hesitate, because ultimately I want this show to be even better than the last, every single episode. And so show me your voice. Feel free to leave that 5-star rating. And let me hear it. I want to know what exactly it is that you want to hear from a communications standpoint. And so let's not waste any more time because I know that episodes 17, 18, and 19 are a mini series as to what PR, MR, and what both of them infused together can be like. I just gave up another spoiler for what the next episode, number 19, is going to look like. But no time to waste. Let's quickly dive into episode 18, which is all about media relations. So, communicator family, are you ready? Yes, let's do it. Let's communicate the MR, shall we? Great. All right, let's focus on the first part of this media relations bonanza, and that is a simple introduction. Basically, what exactly is media relations? So, per the standard dictionary, media relations is the strategic process of managing and nurturing relationships between an organization or individual, if you're solo, and members of the media. It involves building rapport, credibility, and trust with reporters, journalists, bloggers, or any other media professionals to effectively communicate key messages, share news, and shape public perception. Media relations is very essential for gaining media coverage, managing your reputation, and influencing public opinion slash perception. It's basically a strategic management partnership between the organization itself and the people responsible for producing different types of media, which can be a combination of traditional or digital. And it could also compose of editors, reporters, bloggers, influencers, citizen journalists, etc. And so when you look at the broader spectrum, the main difference between public relations and media relations is that public relations is going to be focusing on various areas while media relations only focuses in one area, which is the media. By the way, I'm going to be mentioning that line once again in the upcoming episode, aka number 19, when we talked about the difference between public relations and media relations. Wow, I just gave another spoiler. I just love my audience. But either way, let's hop back. It's really important for any kind of communications pro to understand that when you educate the media on your organization's accomplishments, objectives, news, and all the relevant information, you want to make sure that that information itself is very unique, creative, innovative, and of course, authentic. It's more than just simply pitching. It's all about selling your own unique selling proposition, or USP for short. Your unique selling proposition is the foundation to sell your appeal to media outlets. The thing is, as I just mentioned, it has to be creative, innovative, unique, and authentic to what you represent, as well as what you stand for. You see, some across organizations, and again, it depends as to whether you work in an in house or an agency setting, have a media relations specialist whose job is to solely communicate, build awareness, establish credibility, and create content for press. Sometimes you may even have a media relations specialist that specifically focuses on crisis management, being able to navigate in different complex situations. Basically, you live and breathe media. So that pretty much summarizes as to what media relations typically does on a day-to-day basis. Now we move on to one of the core elements within media relations, and one that I cannot emphasize enough, and that is the importance of building relationships with the media. You see, when you build media relationships, you want to treat the media like they're diamonds, rare diamonds. Why? Because when you build strong media relationships, it is so crucial for that to succeed and ultimately thrive in whatever story you ultimately want to pitch to. Remember, it is not often what you pitch, it is who you pitch to. WHO, underlined and capitalized. Who you pitch. Being specific very much matters when it comes to building media relationships. You have to specifically target a reporter or reporters that directly align as to the story that you're ultimately going to pitch him or her to. Remember, media relations is not direct marketing. Media relations is about building relationships, it's about cultivating them, nurturing them. Media relations is about foundational storytelling. In order for you to build and amplify your story, you need the media to help you push it to that forefront. Ultimately, when I do media pitching, I always view my media reporters as individuals who are staying at a luxurious 5-star hotel. They are my guest. I want to make sure that they're very well taken care of whenever they are covering a campaign, an initiative, or if I'm working at an event and I am fully focused and overseeing the PR side of it. I want to make sure that my reporters have everything that they need, from materials to the location where they're going to be designated in, to offering their media credentials, as well as offering the guidelines, ensuring that I have all of my spokespersons ready to go. So when the reporter wants to interview with them, I make sure that they're very much prepared, and ultimately making myself available to them whenever they are needed. I want to be known as a resource to them, an expert, which we will talk about a little bit later. But I always want to ensure that my media reporters are very much well taken care of, and ensuring that all of their needs are met. And one of the things that I always look for and what I want to do is to establish trust. A line of communications where the reporter can rely on me to not only fulfill what exactly he or she is looking for, but also to rely on me fully understanding what he or she writes about. And then eventually, in return, once that relationship is fully nourished, the reporter in return will have the confidence in coming to me and simply pitching whatever story that could align with what my organization is looking for. And so, when you're building media relationships, you have to understand that this involves certain areas: researching and identifying relevant journalists and media outlets, personalizing communication and outreach efforts, providing valuable information, insights, and resources to outlets, maintaining regular, consistent contact, and being very responsive to inquiries, especially those that are on tight deadlines. And I also want to emphasize that earned media is equivalent to credibility. And so when you build your media list of reporters, influencers, and bloggers, you want to ensure that your media list ultimately is trusted by the audience itself. And now we move on to the third part, which is the role of media relations training. Media relations training is so essential for spokespersons, executives to effectively engage with the media. It's about building confidence in yourself and what you present. Media relations training can enhance interview skills, message delivery, and crisis communication readiness. In that, it includes interview preparations and message development, media etiquette and communications techniques, crisis communications management, and understanding the media landscape and journalist perspectives. Ultimately, whomever you choose as your spokesperson or your spokespersons, they need to feel calm, cool, and confident and confident in what they display. You want them to feel comfortable on camera. And so there's going to be people who have that natural charisma and can easily talk and charm their way through an interview, while there are others who may not feel that comfortable on camera and going to require a little bit more extensive training. But remember, you also want to be careful with individuals who are either talking too much or talking way too minimum. It's about control. It's like driving a car. And so it's really important when you do your media relations training to stick to your talking points. If there is a moment when you are in an interview with a reporter and he or she gives you a question that you may not know, it's important for you to go around it and then be able to hit back with your key message points. It is so critical for you to stay on target, stay on message, because if you don't, then the reporter is going to pick on it, and then he or she's going to deliver a question that you may not know, and it could potentially lead the interview to go sideways. And so once you land having an interview and be able to naturally deliver your message, you're going to be able to have a very positive effect on your performance, and ultimately give yourself and the organization a good moment in the spotlight. Now we focus on pitching stories to the media, which is the next part in this episode. When you pitch stories to the media, it requires careful strategy and execution. Remember, I talked about being specific because it matters, especially when it comes to pitching. When you build media lists organically via monitoring, you want to make sure that you present yourself as the expert in the eyes of reporters and understand specifically what topic they are covering. Build media lists organically and ensure that your story needs to have a large enough audience to justify the outlet's time in investing in your story. Ultimately, the journalist's job is to listen to his audience and to build and publish stories that the reader is going to be interested in. And so it is really important on your end to make sure that that story resonates with what the audience wants to read. And so when you're pitching to the press, here are a couple of key strategies to be aware of. You want to ensure that you're crafting a compelling and newsworthy pitch. You want to customize pitches to match the interests of the targeted journalist. Provide relevant data, quotes, and visuals to support that story. And then follow up promptly and persistently while respecting the journalist's time. Question: who determines a piece of content, whether it is incredibly awesome or plain out not interesting? It's the audience. Reporters must constantly think, will this piece be something that my readers will ultimately consume? You, as well as the reporter, may have to think in the shoes of the reader. It is why it's so important to research before you send out any pitch or news or angle, or much less contact the reporter. You have to make sure you do the research on the outlet itself, what the journalist writes, and see if your story aligns with it. It saves so much time. And so, when you're customizing your pitch, remember to have a customized intro, a compelling storyline, and a tease that assists and ultimately delivers a call to action. Keep your pitch length within 2 or 3 paragraphs, and don't personalize your pitch. Emphasize it instead. And so, when you're typing up your pitch, go directly to the news, straight up, and make sure that it personalizes the journalist's professional needs. Use the center line as an opportunity to improve your credibility. After the initial pitch, send weekly follow-ups, not daily. However, given the news cycle, keep it to 2 to 4 before moving on. Everyone has their preferences, but implement what works best for you. And now we move on to the fifth element of our episode: media relations trends and impact. Media relations continuously evolves due to technological advancements and shifts in media consumption habits. Trends include increasing reliance on digital and social media platforms for news dissemination, the growth of influencer partnerships and brand collaborations, the utilization of analytics for targeted media outreach and measurement, the rise of multimedia and multicultural storytelling through interactive content formats, and the solidification of KPIs, reach, media mentoring, sentiment, and impressions when you're ultimately doing your media analysis. And so, the sixth part, now we're going to focus on thought leadership. And how do you cultivate thought leadership through media relations? Pretty much, it can be a powerful tool and a great way for you to cement yourself within your industry or niche. Some things to keep in mind when you're cultivating your thought leadership: you want to ensure that you provide yourself as an expert, whether you do it in commentary and as well as any speaking engagement or special guest writing in an outlet, anything whatsoever on a trending topic. This is where you can give your insight. As I just mentioned, you want to contribute in guest articles or outlets as well. Participate in panel discussions, interviews, and speaking engagements. And leverage your media coverage to enhance credibility and visibility. And now we move on to the seventh and final part of today's episode, which is the importance of media relations in today's role. And when you talked about how fast paced and interconnected media relations, or if you look in the broader spectrum, external communications and eventually corporate communications, there is such a critical role that media relations plays because it not only builds awareness and reputation, but it drives public opinion and narrative perceptions. It drives traffic and engagement through earned media. You can navigate crisis and reputational management through leveling risk effectively, SEO or search engine optimization, attraction and attention, and obviously thought leadership. And so when you're trying to pitch to the media and you're trying to cement a story within an outlet, here are some six fundamentals to know when it comes to the newsworthiness, especially when you want to ensure that the angle that you're trying to pitch to is newsworthy. Timeliness, something that is about or currently happening, content that just happens immediately, right on the spot. Impact, the news that you can use. How could readers' lives be different if they were impacted by this situation? The proximity, which is local angle. The celebrity area, where the fame of people involved and it depends as to the level of prominence compared to the reach of specific or universal target markets. Human interest, one that is definitely something that many media outlets look for. It's a catch all term for anything that is quirky, weird, or interesting, despite the lack of timeliness or impact. News outlets, especially local, love human interest stories. And it is the easiest form of generating media placements, too. And finally, conflict. Journalists like it, but it is best to steer clear unless you are an expert in that area. So you want to ensure that if there is especially if you're talking about an important uh, societal theme that directly involves a conflict, you want to make sure you are 100% comfortable, fully aware, and an expert about that area before you offer any insight uh, to the audience itself. Nobody likes it when you're talking about something and then you end up going in a different direction and it might blow up against you. And so, with everything that we converse, ultimately, the next question that you might be asking is the evolution of media relations itself. How does it constantly evolve? Well, no doubt about it, it has evolved alongside technological and in terms of media consumption habits. And so, as we look into the future, we have to figure out ways as to how media relations transitions from traditional media outlets to more digital and social media platforms. We also have to understand that the emphasis of media relations focuses specifically on real time engagement and responsiveness. It increases the importance of visual and multimedia storytelling, especially as more organizations are utilizing tools to better utilize for their storytelling, and as well as the role of influencers and user generated content in shaping different types of narratives. Now, before we dive into the conclusion, I just want to make a mention to everyone that when you implement media relations, it's really critical for you to start locally. Eventually, national is going to come to you, and so as long as you establish your relationship with the press on a local scale, regardless of what industry sector you are in, having a footprint in that local area and eventually growing it, it is what's going to happen is that your credibility is going to further expand, and it could very well attract the attention of much more well-known prominent outlets. And so as you continue to tell your story and being an expert in so many areas, ultimately having that relationship, you're going to be able to develop high quality newsworthy angles, establish relationships with key media, and be able to utilize that to your advantage when you're executing your strategy. So when you think and build locally, know this, that eventually that piece is going to further elevate you to much more well-known prominence in the national area. And so, with media relations being an indispensable component of modern communication strategies, it requires all of us fellow communications pros to have that adaptability mindset, being creative, and as well as being visually aware of evolving media landscapes. And so that wraps up episode number 18 of the Communicator, where we dive into the entire ecosystem of media relations. And so you have known PR, you now know MR, and now episode 19, we're going to be diving into the difference between PR and MR. And I hope that you come in fully prepared with your ears open, as we will now analyze the difference between the two areas, a compare and contrast. And I think that is going to be an episode that everyone will certainly enjoy. And so we have now officially reached the end of episode 18 of the Communicator. Questions, comments, anything you agree or disagree with? What topic should I focus on next, even though I just revealed a spoiler? Either way, any feedback is highly welcome. Just email me at yr.ymedia@gmail.com. The email is listed in the episode description. Don't forget to follow me on social and on the Communicator itself. Hit those subscribe buttons and share, like, and comment away as we continue to further amplify this podcast to the next level. Leave a 5-star rating or review. And lastly, tune into episode 19 in 2 weeks' time, and I will see you on the opposite end of the corporate communication spectrum. Till then, everyone, so long.